Stefan Molyneux of freedomainradio.com is joining us, and he's here to break down the situation, what we're facing, the different attack plans. But first off, I am now officially euphoric. I mean, in your expert view, what have we seen? The facade completely dropped? Operation Toto complete? Or how much of the battle have we won? I mean, who are the winners? Who are the losers?
Well, it's first of all, I just wanted to say congratulations to you, Alex, to the entire InfoWars team, to Paul Joseph Watson and others. World War III canceled on account of InfoWars, and that is a pretty good thing. You know, when we talked earlier this year, I said this was the year I felt my whole life had prepared me for this kind of combat, for this kind of battle, and maybe you feel the same way, but I just really wanted to extend heartfelt admiration and congratulations for the role that you have played personally and through your organization and through your affiliates in saving Western civilization. Let's take a bow, shall we? Because we have done some great work this year.
Well, my friend, congratulations to you as well. I mean, clearly they wanted to start World War III, but as Putin said in his congratulations last Wednesday, we know this will not be easy. We should probably talk about why some of the forces in our government want this, but you've got so many great points. Where should we start first?
Well, I think the first thing we want to remember, Alex, is that the media has not changed. The media has learned nothing. The media will not do any U-turns. They will not process anything about how wrong they were, about how misleading they were, about how manipulative they were. And therefore, every time you see Trump in contact with the mainstream media, view it as a kind of psyop. View it as a way to depress you. View it as a way to alienate you from your candidate. View it as a way to set you against Donald Trump. Like I sat down and watched, gritted my teeth, put on my crash helmet, and watched the 60 Minutes interview. And it was just a whole series of brain-dead gotcha questions. Do you disavow the violence being committed in your name? It's like, how do we even know? This could all be false flag stuff. I mean, Lord knows it's been that way in the past, and a lot of these supposed hate crimes have been revealed as hoaxes. And so, do you disavow this? Are you going to go back on your promises? It's like, well, the media, first of all, they said he didn't have any policy platforms. He didn't have any policies. And now they're saying, are you going to repudiate them? And this is all nonsense. It's designed to cause people who supported Trump to freak out, to second guess him, to start armchair.
That's right. And for a year, Stefan, they said he didn't have any policies. They were always there on the site. We covered it. We read it. And then they say, oh, you're not going to deport everybody now, like you said. And he goes, I never said that. I said, if you're a felon and we catch you doing something, you're going to be deported. And everybody else are illegal who will have to have a process to go out and then come back in if they're not criminals, which ought to actually concern some folks. I think we have too much immigration. I was saying he's more liberal than a lot of Republicans, but he actually wants a system so they're not underground, undocumented, permanent underclass that the Democrats basically milk and control. Then they go on and say, So here's what they claim he said. Then he doesn't do what they claim. He does what he says he would do, and they say it's a lie.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, if you know anything about Donald Trump, he's not that enigmatic. You just read The Art of the Deal, read some of the other books that and hear what he said. He doesn't like to box himself in by jumping to conclusions, and that's a great gotcha game. Because at this point, you know, he's not the president yet. It's still months away. So they're going to say, well, how are you going to deal with this, and how are you going to deal with that? Now, events could change, information could change, and of course, he's privy to a lot of information now that he wasn't privy to just last week. I mean, he's obviously had his security briefings. He's up to speed on things. I guess he's got the same amount of information that most of the foreign governments who seem to have gone fishing through Hillary Clinton's server now have. So it's nice to have him up to speed with some of the other governments that know all of the stuff about American security. But he's not president yet. He's not going to box himself in. He's always said, I don't like people who reveal all their plans ahead of time because it gives your enemies time to organize. It gives them a sense of where you're going. So the fact that he's hedging his bets, that he's not coming to conclusions, is entirely in line with everything he said throughout his entire campaign and his entire career.
What do you think of the conciliatory tone he's been striking that's been met, as you said, with hissing hatred from the media, who seems to have only intensified what got them to this totally discredited position?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm ambivalent about it. So I'll just give you sort of very briefly the two sides of the argument. Number one is I'm a theoretician, like I'm a moral philosopher, and so I get to deal with perfection. I get to deal with abstracts and ideals. When you get into politics, it's been called for many centuries the art of the possible. You have to make compromises. Even if you've got the House, and even if you've got the Senate, they still have enough in the Dems still have enough in the Senate to do a filibuster. So you have to make compromises. You have to make compromises with the existing existing rhino structure. And so I can sit here armchair quarterback and cry purity until the day I die. But the reality is I'm not actually out there trying to achieve legislative changes in politics, which is a unpleasant and messy thing, as I think it was Bismarck in the 19th century in Germany who said there are two things the public should never, ever see being made. Number one, sausages. Number two, laws. It's a messy, difficult business. So, you know, the compromises, I don't know the degree to which they're necessary. He's had a chance to study this for a long time. He's got access to information I'll never have a hold of, and he has to know where his compromises are. But the man's had a multi-decade career of getting incredible things done, of picking the right team, of executing, of delivering. At some point, doesn't the person have enough credibility that you're just going to trust what they're going to do until you see something wildly egregious? And I certainly haven't seen anything like that yet.
Well, I was about to say there were French governors, and you know, like Louis XIV was one point. Kit Daniels was pointing out, he's doing an article on it right now. There were Chinese emperors. I mean, there's one form of governing where you actually take your enemies and you stick them in positions of power to basically fight with each other now, but you divide up that camp. Quite frankly, somebody else did that. His name was Adolf Hitler. I'm not saying that's a very good way to govern. I know it works sometimes, and then you can, at an executive level, control what they're doing. Obviously, Reince Priebus knows how to basically unlock all the doors. He knows the players. He knows how to get stuff done. He's such a backstabber, I don't trust him. The fact that Stephen Bannon is in charge of him as the main presidential advisor, kind of putting out what the policy will be with Trump and then telling Priebus to follow it, I mean, I think that's good. But Priebus is such a butt boy, to use a vernacular, of Paul Ryan, who is the biggest snake in Washington other than maybe Harry Reid, doesn't look good. But look, I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. He has pledged, though, that obviously the president doesn't prosecute, but that they would get out of the way with an attorney general for justice to be done. Now, I talked to him about that on Friday. That's private. I'm going to leave that at that. But he said in the 60 Minutes piece that, look, I want to focus on making the country successful. I want to move forward. I get not opening old wounds, but at the same time, he's got to do what he's got to do. I mean, I think the biggest litmus test for this, tell me if I'm wrong, he's got to appoint really good constitutional judges, not just obviously the Supreme Court, but other federal appointees, and we're going to have those popping up in just a few months. He'll be in 66 days, and there's a bunch of resets, appointments, and stuff that are just waiting that have been held up. That'll be the first big litmus, judges. Pushing tax cuts, pushing sovereignty, defense of the border, all this free welfare for illegals and stuff has got to be curtailed. And then also, it really is a good attorney general that goes after the Clintons and the whole Soros crime network, because they're never going to stop coming after Trump. Look what they're doing right now until he does that. So then going after them also puts them on the defense instead of them always trying to shut down the beachhead we have to restore the Western world.
Well, of course, when you're looking at a magician and he is kind of a master wizard of organization, you don't look at the hand that has the dove in it. You look at the other hand, because that's where the magic is going on. So for me, bringing Reince in, okay, so he's got Bannon to countervail that and so on, and he needs all of the allegiances and alliances and knowledge of working with the rhinos that Reince is going to bring. But what it does, which I don't think people are commenting on enough, is it opens up who's going to be head of the RNC. Now, of course, if Trump is going to have some say, I assume he will, in who gets to be head of the RNC, well, I would bring Reince closer, and then I would appoint somebody who would be more along my particular ideological bent as head of the RNC. And that's, to me, a beautiful thing. You've got this guy in, he's going to bring all his loyalties, but you get to appoint someone else more in line with your thinking as head of the RNC. And I think that's a wonderful approach.
So keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Right, right. And so I think that we have to remember that he's done some fantastic things long before he's even gotten into power. I mean, Canada and Mexico are opening up renegotiations with NAFTA. Thank heaven the Rust Belt might resurrect itself and come back like a phoenix from the ashes of bad trade deals. Russia's interested in normalizing relationships. The head of Syria wants to work with him. With Russia in Syria and in other places in the Middle East, you're going to have a much more effective ally against ISIS, which is what Trump has wanted to do. I mean, the man has been president-elect for a couple of days, and already the world is settling into a more rational pattern.
No, you're right. I mean, it's a new day. I saw you kind of sing part of that song on your own show. It's a new world for me. It certainly is beautiful, and that's why the establishment is so upset about Trump, is because from day one, he's calling the shots. I happen to know for a fact from people that are close to him, he is working 20, I actually worry about him at 70. He's such a Trojan, such a Herculean. 20 hours a day. And when I talk to him, I'm not name dropping, it just shows what he does on Friday for, I mean, a lengthy conversation, less than 10 minutes, but it was almost 10 minutes long. it was a real conversation. He wasn't just patting me on the back. He had real questions. I had real comments. I had real things I was saying. And I said, I said, sir, you're so busy, you probably have to go. And he goes, yeah, I am pretty busy. He started telling me, you're the 61st call I'm making today to thank folks, but I'm also getting all these other calls from kings and queens and world leaders. And you know what? It's so crazy. All of a sudden, now that I'm in, I'm the best guy in the world. And so that is the good news. A lot of them that were saying he was the worst person in the world, they're saying he's great now. The problem is there's surrogates that we know are financed by him are still attacking. And so I said, look, you can't trust these people. Please press the attack because it's what you said you'd do. Plus, they're never going to stop. And I'm not going to tell people what he said to that, but it was quite interesting.
Well, of course, when you win the lottery, everyone's your friend. What you care about are the people who chipped in for your ticket ahead of time. So after you have become the president-elect, of course, everybody's going to want to come in and, well, I may have said some things, but hey, we're sorry and blah, 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 blah. And, this question around what's going to happen with the Clintons. Well, of course, if people were asking him this question, and Leslie Stahl did, they asked him the question, what are you going to do with the Clintons? That's a total gotcha question. It's not up to the president to pursue the Clintons. It's up to the president to put someone in charge of the DOJ who's not going to derail.
So he properly demurred. He properly just sidestepped it.
Let the grand jury decide.
So he properly demurred.
Yeah, it's not his. It would be a dictator's job would be to go after a political opponent, and he doesn't want to seem to be gunning for a political opponent because that's third world dictator style stuff. What he's going to do is he's going to appoint a competent attorney general, someone who's going to pursue that. It's going to go through the FBI's investigation to a grand jury with subpoena powers, with search powers, and so on. And maybe he's had a look at these 650,000 emails that were taken off the Uma Abedin and Anthony Weiner's computer. Maybe he's had a look at those and all the horrifying things that some people have talked about as being on those. Maybe that's enough. Maybe the FBI shared information with him that it's an open and shut case on the Clinton Foundation, and he doesn't need to do anything more. So just let the man do his job, and which he is not even.
No, I totally agree. The only successful attack they can have, 66 days out from him being inaugurated, it'll still take a few months for him to actually get going once that happens. We'll know in about 4 months whether Trump's for real or not, folks, is to change the subject. And their new attack bots, their new talking points in media is, he's going to betray you. He doesn't know what he's doing. We're all in this great danger. That's what Dave Chappelle said. He goes, what do you mean? We just had our first black president. Everything's, I guess, okay. Let's give Trump a shot. This idea that, talk about elitism, that because he's a rich billionaire that built his own business, he's somehow incompetent. Thank God we've got somebody that isn't just a lawyer in there for the first time.
Well, isn't it beautiful that after the mainstream media plays the race card and plays the gender card and plays the gay card, America just turns around and says, boom,
Trump
we're
card.
playing the Trump card, and we take the House.
We just finished each other's sentence. I love how we're synced up. Matt was listening, one of my producers, to you while he was biking downtown this weekend. They'd taken over the Capitol, the communist, literally red flags everywhere, and he described to me a point you were making. Matt, I'm putting you on the spot here. Pop in and repeat what Molyneux said so he can repeat it here.
The timing was great. I was actually biking past the Capitol building here in Austin, Texas, and there were a bunch of people holding up signs, and it was at that point in time, it was an episode, maybe a Thursday or Friday show, your Free Domain Radio, and you had made the point, you said, people on the left, these social justice weaklings, are so upset because reality is not conforming with their fantasies. And I thought that was an excellent point. It just happened to be at such the right time. I wanted to put it on a loudspeaker, but you gotta respect these people's free speech.
No, I do, Matt. Matt, that's a great point. But I mean, to Stefan, this is my question. How do you reach out to these people? Because now when I go in a restaurant or whatever, and I start seeing somebody flip out on me or a clerk, I go, oh my God, you're upset about Trump. And they go, yes, I am, and start crying. I mean, I had a woman not want to serve me and really get rude to me when I was at a liquor store buying 2 bottles of wine Friday, and she was an anti-Trump person and knew who I was. And so I'm so well known now, it's for the first time actually gotten to me how pissed they are. And I had a Hispanic guy bow up to me in the gas station, a black guy do it outside the gas station. And I had to turn around and just go, okay, I mean, you're ready to go, let's go. And there's racial attacks happening everywhere. I mean, this is really scary, Stefan.
Well, look, I mean, I go back to Princess Diana when she died. When Princess Diana died, a lot of people in England, and particularly the women, went through this extraordinary outpouring of grief and horror and sadness and mourning and all of that. And then they all felt a lot better afterwards, and they all got a lot happier. Mental health declined. You know, when fantasies get destroyed, of course it's painful. Fantasy is a drug. Like if you're going to go off heroin, if you've been on it for 20 years, you're going to go through withdrawals. It's not the doctor's fault, it's the heroin's fault. And it's the dealer's fault, i.e. the media, if you're
But the Democrats were worse under Hillary. Blacks had double unemployment under Obama. I mean, don't they understand that Trump is not out to screw them?
Well, they don't, and it is just a matter of growing up. When it comes to socialism and communism, we all start off that way. I mean, we don't pay rent to our parents when we're 5 years old. We have this big, giant structure that takes care of us, provides us food and shelter, and organizes our life for us. And at some point, you have to break out of that dependent mode, and you have to be your own person. You have to individuate. You have to become who you are, and you have to become an adult. You know, when you become an adult, you put away childish things like dependence on authority to provide you with your resources and your reason for being. So it's just a transition. Trump is going to bring about more of the free market, less government dependence, so people are going to have to
Exactly. It's the end of childhood. It's the end of childhood that the left tries to put us into in this straitjacket of mental illness conformity that is pure authoritarianism. We'll be right back, cover a bunch of news, take your phone calls and more with Stefan Molyneux. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, I told you so, that communist Chinese-style net censorship was coming to the web, because it's already here. It's being announced. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com/app. A new battleship in the fight. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You going to sit down and play games and be a trendy? Or are you going to be part of history? Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action.